I'm so glad we've moved our setting from the human realm to the Boiling Isles to focus on what really matters. Jokes aside, we're closing in on the end of an awesome series, meaning the stakes are rising, emotions are running high, and we're on the precipice of multiple brands of shit hitting the fan. Like any penultimate episode, For the Future sets the groundwork for what is surely going to be an epic finale, but I do have a few criticisms along with my praise. This is an Owl House video, meaning it's not complete until I whine about Season 3 being shortened into 3 special episodes. Wah. But seriously, most of my complaints revolve around time usage, which was out of the crew's control, so take that with a grain of salt. My first big compliment goes to the score, which has changed from lighthearted and whimsical to something darker and more dramatic. Just like the animation, the shift slowly took place as the plot thickened. She thick. My second compliment is that the Collector is rad as hell, and I'll admit I wasn't a huge fan of his character when it was first introduced. Aesthetically, this design complements the universe, but I'm typically wary of a show juggling too many villains. I was such a fan of Belos as the big bad boy that I worried another antagonist would distract from the main drama, humans and witches and casual clone murder. But the Collector isn't meant to distract from this story, but rather aid in King's plotline. I'm not against including villains for kicks, but with such little time remaining, I'm relieved that the Collector serves a purpose to tie up loose ends, rather than raise new problems that need solving. I also appreciate that the Collector serves as a different type of antagonist compared to Bella Boy. I've heard many refer to him as an omnipotent iPad kid, and yeah, I really think this kid would go hard in Minecraft, I can see it. This chaotic naivety is so different from Belos' cruel and calculated approach to being the fucking worst. The Collector can definitely, and probably will, serve as an ally out of necessity. As King points out,
the Collector is just a little kid. A scary, powerful one, but also sad and alone.
This isn't someone looking to gain power. This is someone who already holds power and doesn't know how to use it because he's always been the OP bitch. It's interesting that the two major antagonists are immortal. The show focuses constantly on the idea of history repeating itself, from smaller concepts like not wanting your kid to suffer the way you suffered, to the murder and rebirth of clones who have always come to the same realization, to even bigger concepts like the invasion of other lands and massacre. The fact these villains are some brand of immortal works alongside the idea that these evils always resurface. The Collector is clearly different from the others, but we haven't been given a reason to think this is anything short of self-serving yet, and I personally can't wait to find out. On a lighter note, the design choices for both the Collector and Belos are amazing. It makes sense that the Collector, who sees people as nothing more than playthings, has made them puppets. Between the puppetry, this cool moon and sun room, and the actual character design, the Collector is doing this episode's aesthetic justice. Belos, haunted by his last sliver of humanity, a great villain trope by the way, literally looks like the husk of a man. He's trying so hard to prove that humans are this powerful species that he's ended up becoming the least human-like creature on the show. My next accolade is one I bring up every time I make a video about the Owl House. I rarely see cartoons that delve just as deeply into its adult characters as its kids. I love that not only is Luce's mom being written to serve Luce's story, but she also has her own. She's still actively realizing her mistakes and working on them, seeking out advice from Luce's friends, and trying to help her daughter no matter how valid her fear of the Boiling Isles is. Camille is a great character, and I love how the show is progressing the mother-daughter relationship. This entire story began because Luce felt isolated, even from her mother. I'm so glad that this wasn't discarded as soon as the larger plot of an evil emperor came up. Luce consistently struggled with the idea of returning home to the human realm where she never fit in. Season 3 has slowly begun resolving this through communication instead of one grand gesture on her mom's behalf, and I really appreciate that approach. In fact, the truth that finally allowed Luce's palisman to hatch was that she wanted to be accepted. It also looked super fucking anime. Luce always went on about wanting to prove herself and become a great witch, but being a witch has always been something of a metaphor. Metaphors. She felt more at home in the demon realm, but Camille is just happy her daughter feels like she belongs. In fact, a small moment that stuck with me was this.
They have to chain up their homework?
This could be either comical or scary depending on how you look at it, but Camilla looks relieved. She looked happy that there's a place so fun and whimsical that matches her daughter's interests. But as much as I enjoyed this episode, I do have a few small criticisms. The first is that as much as I love seeing what the Hexside kids are up to, a thick slice of their screen time could have been given to King, Ida, Belos, or the Collector. Again, the season was cut short, so it feels unfair to criticize how the 45 minutes was broken down, but I would have preferred something similar to Thanks to Them. Since the first special only focused on one set of characters, the plot was able to progress seamlessly. But now that we're focusing on multiple plot lines, less can progress in each of those individual plots. I'm not saying I think we should have made the entire episode about what's been happening on the Boiling Isle since the kids left, but personally, unpacking the reasons Basha is the resident bitch was something I could have lived without in favor of more Ida and Lilith, or more about the history of Titans versus Collectors, and how Bellos was planning to use that to his advantage. The overwhelming presence of Mythalmule and Basha in this episode felt like if you turned on Naruto during the big bad boss battle and there was like an episode revolving around 1010. But while I wish this episode had focused more on the larger plot, I can't complain about how these two characters' screen time was used. Mythalmule was the minor antagonist who learned from his mistakes with Gus's help, and Basha was a remnant of Willow's insecurities and Amity's mistakes, meaning that these character stories subtly progressed these character stories. So I won't pretend it was completely pointless, just that I could have lived without it. My biggest complaint about this episode is a #personal problem, because I'd absolutely understand if other people enjoyed it, but I wasn't that huge on the whole Willow holding things in thing. It's not that I didn't like the concept, it actually makes sense that Willow would be doing this as the quote-unquote mom friend. But I can't help but think it would have hit harder had it been included in earlier seasons as well. In my opinion, Willow has always been good at communicating with her friends. She'd been open with Amity not respecting her growth, and always told Luce and Gus if she disagreed with their actions.
I'll distract them with illusions of beautiful lady gods.
This isn't a cartoon from the 40s, Gus!
And yeah, people who bottle things up can pick and choose when to share their doubts, but I would have liked to see this behavior have a longer running impact on Willow. By seeming to both introduce and resolve this issue in one episode, it's reminiscent of a lesson of the day cartoon. I half expected Orko to pop up and tell me that today we learned sharing our feelings is healthy. Willow's story until now has been slowly progressing, and this sudden and contained subplot was doing her character a disservice, in my opinion. I think the bones were good, Willow being the strongest is a reasonable cause for her feeling the biggest burdens, but the pacing felt off. Again, who knows how this would have played out in a full-length season. My next whiny complaint is that I wish Hunter didn't inherit Flapjack's power. Something about it feels off considering the fact Flapjack was different from the other Palismen, as Hunter doesn't possess magic himself. Now he suddenly does, and fans need to consider how this fits in with every metaphor surrounding Hunter's character that Flapjack served. But I'm 100% open to changing my mind about this and the Willow thing if someone more knowledgeable than I am explains it to me. I know it sounds like I'm hating on this episode, but I'm really not. Or if I am a hater, I'm a hater with love. I think the first part of Season 3 set my expectations really high, since it was an amazing beginning of the end type of episode. But who knows, Part 3 might just blow Parts 1 and 2 out of the water. Personally, there is one thing I really look forward to in the final part, and that's closure on the human realm versus demon realm debacle. Debacle? This has been a lingering thought on Luce's mind throughout the entire show, and I'm hoping the way it wraps up does Luce's character justice. And if I'm being honest, I hope this decision doesn't come without sacrifice. And before you think, yo, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm not saying this because I want Luce to suffer, but because a conflict that has lasted the entire duration of the show and is at the heart of our protagonist's story deserves more than a Hannah Montana best of both worlds conclusion, in which Luce can easily travel between both worlds with no problems whatsoever. As we get closer to the end, I'm less sure of what the show will choose to do. There were points at which I thought she'd obviously choose the Boiling Isles, choose the human realm, get to travel easily between both, or have to choose one world and live with the consequences. To be honest, the Amphibia ending made me unsure because now I know what this godforsaken brand of TVY7 can do. But I don't really mind how this show chooses to wrap up the storyline, so long as it feels like the decision holds weight. After all, it's starting to seem like Camila is Team Boiling Isles, at least for Luce's sake. Lastly, I'm really looking forward to the Owl House family reunion. You can't show me a picture of them in adorable matching sweaters and expect me not to get emotional, but I'm just so excited. The concept of Luce's human mom and owl mom meeting is just too adorable. Overall, I think this was a solid part 2 for the final season. I still prefer Thanks to Them as a standalone, but again, penultimate episodes usually just set the groundwork, so none of my feelings on this can be cemented until part 3 comes out. In fact, I hope that part 3 proves my criticisms of part 2 incorrect. What I can say with confidence is that this series is 100% going to remain a staple in animation, and will be on the top of my top cartoons list for a long time. The aesthetic, characters, story, and lessons are a monument to everything we love about older cartoons from the past, while also trying out new themes to pave the way for the future of animation.